how it was so outdated and how Rachel Zegler disrespected the original, and a classic from Walt Disney, something that completely saved Disney and changed the company and changed animation in general.
Where do we even begin with the live-action Snow White? The moment Disney announced it, it was either going to be a groundbreaking masterpiece or an absolute train wreck. Because of course, Disney has a stellar track record of taking their cherished animated classics and turning them into whatever this is supposed to be. I mean, who wouldn't want to mess with the perfect formula of nostalgia and modern storytelling, right?
This is what theaters look like across the world, and it just keeps getting worse. The memes. Let's say that you were in a Hollywood movie, and the trailer for that movie dropped on YouTube, and it instantly became the #1 most downvoted trailer in the history of the platform.
See the other side. What's the dwarf?
Dwarf refers to a person with one of several varieties of a specific genetic condition called dwarfism. A dwarf has disproportionate body parts.
But as soon as the first details about the film started leaking, it didn't take a genius to realize something was off. Fans and critics alike were practically shocked to notice that Gasp, the new version, strayed a little, okay, a lot, from what made the original Snow White so iconic. And instead of just updating the story for today's sensibilities, it seemed like they might have just tossed out the old one entirely. Who could have guessed that a rushed attempt to be progressive might just backfire in the worst way possible? By the time Snow White finally hit theaters, well, it was safe to say that all those early concerns were looking pretty spot on. The box office numbers? A disastrous flop. Critics, whether they were sitting in traditional theaters or typing away from their keyboards, were practically eviscerating the film. And let's not forget Disney's CEO, Bob Iger, returning after his so-called retirement, only to find himself facing a completely different set of problems. Oh, and as if things weren't already looking grim, Disney's theme parks were suddenly more ghost town than happiest place on earth, and their streaming efforts, well, let's just say they weren't exactly bringing in the big bucks. And then this movie drops right in the middle of it all. With stars like Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot leading the charge, Disney clearly hoped they could somehow magically resurrect the beloved 1937 classic for today's audience. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. Instead, this movie got tagged with the unfortunate label of a box office disaster. Talk about an embarrassing fate for a franchise that once symbolized the golden age of Disney animation. As for the film's reception, oh, where do we even begin? The backlash came in waves, and it was all about how they completely mangled the most essential elements of the original story. Sure, some people were all for a creative update, but most fans felt like this adaptation obliterated the core of what made the fairy tale so timeless. The dwarves, Snow White's character, even the setting, all of it was so drastically altered that it left the die-hard fans shaking their heads in confusion, if not outright rage. And beyond those changes, the film didn't even wow anyone technically. Critics couldn't help but point out the lackluster direction, the meh cinematography, and an overall vibe that screamed, "We don't really know what we're doing here." And of course, at the eye of this storm was Rachel Zegler. Sure, she had made a name for herself in some big roles, but this was a whole new level of spotlight, one that probably felt a little more scorching than she'd bargained for. The sheer scale of the backlash? Absolutely no one saw it coming. And of course, this disaster wasn't just a bad movie. It had real consequences for Rachel Zegler's career. Word on the street, or should I say behind the scenes, was that Disney had suddenly decided to distance themselves from her, even cutting her out of future projects. She was supposedly cast in Toy Story 5, where her character went by the mysterious codename Spiral. But poof, gone. And as if that wasn't enough, whispers emerged that she had been part of a Pirates of the Caribbean reboot, only to be axed before anything could even get started. Of course, there was already skepticism surrounding that reboot, but Zegler's sudden departure kicked up a media frenzy. The rumors spiraled out of control, with some wondering if the entire Pirates project might be scrapped or rewritten completely. Then, just when you thought things couldn't get any worse, Zegler added fuel to the fire during the actors' strike. She boldly declared that cast members should be compensated every time someone clicked on the film after it hit Disney+. Naturally, that suggestion was met with waves of mockery and accusations of entitlement. After all, this is Hollywood we're talking about. No one gets paid per click, no matter how revolutionary an idea it sounds. Sure, many can agree that the industry's pay structure could use some major overhauling, especially with streaming flipping everything upside down. But Zegler's take was seen by many as a little too naive, bordering on clueless. And her comments about wearing the Snow White costume for 16 to 18 hours a day, oh, that didn't exactly win her sympathy points either. Experienced actors and crew members quickly pointed out that long hours are pretty standard when it comes to big-budget productions, especially when you're stuck in a complicated costume. Rather than sparking empathy, it came off as if she didn't fully grasp the nature of her work, even after being involved in some pretty major Hollywood projects. And just when you thought the storm had passed, Zegler's defense of the film added more fuel to the fire. She had the nerve to call the new Snow White the best and bravest version of the character, which, to the diehard fans of the 1937 classic, felt like a slap in the face. This wasn't just any movie. They saw that original film as the heart and soul of Disney's entire legacy. To make matters worse, her praise seemed to dismiss every other Snow White adaptation, from the Grimm brothers' Grimm version to Kristen Stewart's Snow White and the Huntsman, and even the cheeky Mirror Mirror with Lily Collins. So yeah, not exactly the best PR move, was it? At this point, Zegler's behavior seemed to give off the vibe of someone stuck in a serious tunnel vision when it came to her own performance. The more she dug in her heels, the more it fueled the growing firestorm surrounding the film. And soon, the rumors spread like wildfire. Other studios were reportedly having second thoughts about working with her. Blumhouse Productions, a company not exactly known for shying away from bold casting, supposedly dropped her from a new horror trilogy. Meanwhile, whispers grew that Warner Brothers had quietly cut her from a political thriller where she was slated to play a significant role. Suddenly, the online narrative turned to, is Zegler officially done in Hollywood? Sure, the reality is probably more complicated than that. Hollywood deals fall apart all the time for a myriad of reasons, like creative shifts or budget cuts. But when the cancellations come in rapid-fire succession, the damage to your reputation starts to stack up. And soon enough, the perception started to form that Zegler was becoming too much of a controversial figure for studios to take a risk on. Social media commentators, YouTubers, and even the gossip mill began putting her in the same category as other celebrities who had faced backlash, like Robert De Niro, Alec Baldwin, and George Clooney, who all found themselves in hot water for their outspoken views, or shall we say, abrasive comments. But here's the thing. Zegler, with her relatively short career and limited filmography, was a rookie compared to those seasoned pros. Could she handle the same level of backlash without derailing her entire trajectory? Meanwhile, Disney found itself floundering in damage control mode, trying to salvage Snow White. Bob Iger, who had built a reputation on shrewd brand management, was now stuck trying to manage a mess. The company had weathered rough patches before, but this was a whole new level of chaos. The criticism felt personal, almost like it was the tipping point for years of pent-up frustration over Disney's recent missteps. While Disney's official statements insisted the film had a deeper quality that critics were just too blind to see, the numbers didn't lie. Box office sales were dismal, and social media was practically buzzing with negativity. Rachel Zegler, of course, tried to spin the narrative in her favor, declaring on social media that the film was the #1 movie in the world. But surprise, the online community didn't exactly buy it. Fans quickly pointed to ticket sales data, which told a very different story. And then there was the film's marketing campaign. Oh boy. TV spots tried to sell the film as this quirky, fun ride, showing the dwarfs in silly, playful scenarios. The only problem? It completely clashed with the mounting negativity surrounding the production, making the whole thing feel even more out of touch.